Recording
I
in
pledge
progress.
allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
of
of
America
America,
and
and
to the
republic
which stands
and
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Maybe for next time we'll just have someone lead it. We'll appoint maybe Mr. Huber to lead the flag pledge. Okay, can we have a quick roll call?
Sure. Mayor Chris Weber. Absent. Committeeman Rich Hubert.
Present.
Mr. David Burnett.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Aaron Laufer.
Here.
Mr. Brian Brendel.
Here.
Ms. Marissa Ruggiero.
Here.
Mr. Tom Lopes.
Here.
Mr. Scott Wishna.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Kessel.
Here.
And Chairman Jeff Tiger.
I'm here. Perfect.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, a couple quick housekeeping things. Ms. Law sent out our meeting dates for 2022. Please take an opportunity to review those dates. Our first meeting date will be January 10th at 6:30. That's the second Monday. It is just by chance we had to do that to align with the Township Committee meeting. We will typically try to hold the first Monday of every month at 6:30. For now, we will continue being virtual. The RFP subcommittee meeting will take place sometime between now and January 10th. I know that Aaron, Sharon, Mr. Barnett, and Mr. Schwartz will be that subcommittee. Ms. Law will be reaching out to you guys to set up a time to review the RFPs. That way you guys can report back to the board on January 10th with your recommendations. Any other members of the board is completely welcome to go look at those RFPs and see and read them over. They'll be on the Google Drive and so forth and take place in the discussion on January 10th, which is our reorg meeting. We have a resolution tonight for T-Mobile. It's for a site plan waiver. I know everyone heard that application. Ms. Law had it on the Google Drive. I read the resolution. I don't see any issues with it. Any questions or concerns by the board? Seeing none, can Mr. Barnett make a motion?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the resolution, memorialize the resolution for the cell tower. Sorry, that was not very elegant.
No problem. Mrs. Kessel's going to second it, right?
Second.
All right. Can we have a quick roll call?
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Laufer.
Yes.
Mr. Brendel.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes.
And Chair Tiger.
Yes.
Motion
Perfect.
passes.
Okay, we had two ordinances that the Township Committee sent over to us. The first one was the billboards ordinance. We are going to remove that from the agenda. That will be sent back to us at a later date by the governing body. It's something, they have some things they need to work on, nothing that the board has to do right now, but that will be sent back to the Township Committee and they will refer it back to us when they're ready with additions. The one item that we have on the agenda tonight is the marijuana ordinance. I know that this board has already heard that ordinance. The board found it was consistent with the master plan and we notified the governing body. Since then, they had some small changes to the ordinance, which they're required by law to have this board review. I know that Mr. Disco and Mr. Hughes reviewed the letter and the changes to the ordinance and found it, they felt that it was consistent with the master plan. But I'm going to ask Mr. Disco to quickly, briefly outline it to us and then see if we have some concerns.
All municipalities in New Jersey were required to have an ordinance in place for cannabis prior to or by August 1st, 2021. Springfield did that. They met their obligation. The state then issued the standards for it on August 19th. So most municipalities are amending their original ordinances to reflect and to jive with the state. So if you look at the ordinance that's before us tonight, a lot of it is language, a lot of it is the fees, and most of the changes are non-zoning or board related, planning related. The Keenan had done a letter after the last go around which identified the concerns or comments that the board had. There was really 4 principal topic points, and this revised or amended ordinance incorporates all of those 4 changes. I guess the principal one was, in terms of the board comment, was a buffer from residential properties, and that's been incorporated into it. As I outlined in my review, when we were tasked with that, we ran a sensitivity analysis on multiple buffer distances. When we did 1,000 feet, we basically were left with 1 property in the center island of 22. That's certainly not what the township committee wanted. We went to 500 feet. We were still only less than about 50% of the HC zone or Route 22 properties. Again, not quite what their intent was. And then we basically looked at adjacent properties and then the 200-foot buffer, which is in there. And about 80% or 75 to 80% of the HC zone properties are still eligible. And that's what's reflective in that. There's been a lot of interest the town's got from people who are interested in a facility, whether it's retail or something else. I would probably anticipate, and there's already language in this go around, that the fees are valid for 2021 and 2022. So you may see this again at the end of 2022, going into 2023, depending upon the interest in this. It seems like there's going to be a lot of interest in siting a facility. Many of the properties that are eligible just have no vacancy at this time, but we are getting a lot of inquiries. So I'll stand on that for the time being and allow Keenan to discuss.
So, Mr. Disco, based upon your findings, you think that this is acceptable and it makes most sense for the board?
Yes.
Perfect.
Responsible to what the board had requested previously, and it's acceptable to the committee members.
Perfect. And you feel that this is adequate buffer because the board was very concerned about residential. It's what we can get to give us that buffer.
Yes, and again, some of the residential buffering are not single family homes as well. It's multifamily incorporated in there to some degree.
Yep, makes sense.
There's also buffers from, again, places of worship, playgrounds. There was other ones in there that have not changed, and they're still in there.
Perfect. Okay, Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, I would just add, I concur with Mike's analysis, and I think the bottom line is it appears the governing body has addressed the comments that the planning board provided to it over the summer when it reviewed ordinance 2021-19. So as Mike described, adding the buffer seems to address the board's concern in that regard. And then there's a couple of other tweaks to address other comments that the board had. And then finally, it's our opinion that the ordinance remains substantially consistent with the master plan, and in particular, land use goal number 3, which references taking advantage of redevelopment opportunities along the Route 22 corridor as new uses are proposed for underutilized sites, in as much as obviously this ordinance targets as a conditional use this type of use being permitted conditionally along the Route 22 corridor. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything further on direct.
Perfect. Okay, so let me open up to the board to see if they have any questions. Mr. Huber?
No, I've heard enough of it.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Barnett?
No comments. Thank you. No questions.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Lopes?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Mr. Wishna?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Brendel?
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Loeffler?
I'm good, thank you.
Laufer.
Loeffler, I know. I'm so sorry, Aaron. Mrs. Kessel?
I didn't correct you.
No questions, thanks.
But David always does. And I have no. Perfect. Okay, at this time, I'm going to take the opportunity to open this matter up to the public. Anyone that wishes to speak on the ordinance 2021-31 entitled Cannabis.
Seeing none.
Seeing none, I'm going to take this opportunity to close this matter to the public and remand it back to the board. So basically, what I'm asking the board to do is authorize, whether it's me or Mr. Disco, I'll probably have it to do it rather quickly because the meeting's tomorrow night, to draft a letter on behalf of this board saying that we found this, proposed change is consistent with the master plan. So if someone can entertain that motion, I would appreciate it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Can we have a quick roll call?
Yep, Mr. Schwartz,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Barnett,
Yes to approve.
Committeeman Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Luffer,
Yes.
Mr. Brendel,
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel,
Yes.
and Chairman Tiger.
Yes.
Motion
Okay,
passed.
well, guys, looking forward to January. We will have a little bit of busier of a January 10th meeting with the reorg. We have Nissan World coming. We will obviously have the billboard. We may have a conceptual plan for a site on Route 22 that will be coming before the board. The land use law allows residents, anyone to come with a conceptual plan to hear what the board has to say. It is a non-binding type of a hearing. It just gives everyone on the board to give an opportunity to the applicant to hear what they're thinking, what their thinking is. Thanks everyone for a great 2021. Look forward to seeing you guys next year. We will continue virtually until we as the board deem it to be safe. So before I do any other, I'm going to open up to the public one more time for any other matters that before this board.
Seeing none.
Seeing none. Okay, motion to close the meeting.
Close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone have a good holiday.
Happy holidays,
You too.
everyone.
Happy holidays,
Happy New Year.
everybody.
Be safe.